everybody. Dramatic testimony today in the trial of movie producer Harvey Weinstein, accused of 5 sex crimes in New York. Actress Annabella Sciorra was the first to take the stand this morning. Law&Crime's Jesse Weber was inside the courtroom to hear it all.
We saw the testimony of Annabella Sciorra, the first accuser and probably the most well-known of all the women to testify today. She began with her upbringing, how she was a struggling actress, made her a breakout performance in such projects as Spike Lee's Jungle Fever. Now, it was at some point in the early 90s when she meets Harvey Weinstein in LA, sometime between fall 93 to winter 94 in New York City, when she's offered a ride home by Weinstein. She goes upstairs, gets ready for bed, when she hears a knock on the door. Now, Harvey Weinstein, according to her, shows up outside, barges in, and forces her into the bedroom, pinning her arms down and raping her, even saying, "You have perfect timing." Now, as she testified, unsurprisingly, she was choked up. She took long pauses, very emotional. She did explain how she went into a depression after this incident, how she would even cut herself, even smearing her blood on her walls. Now, she didn't report this to anyone. She didn't tell anyone, because she even said she didn't feel that this was rape, the common definition of rape, and that she was afraid. Annabella Sciorra would continue to say that Harvey Weinstein would stalk her, including at the Cannes Film Festival in 1997. Gloria Allred, who represents Annabella Sciorra, had this to say about her testimony.
It's not what she expected. It's not what she wanted, and she didn't consent to an act of sexual penetration of her by Mr. Weinstein's genitals, and she didn't consent to any act of oral copulation by him on her. That's her testimony. I'm summarizing it, not saying it exactly, but that's her testimony, and it's very strong, clear testimony. So I'm very proud of her.
We then moved into the cross-examination by Donna Rotuno. First, she went into saying how she's an actress, implying that she knows how to play a role and sell that to an audience. Donna Rotuno also picked apart that Annabella Sciorra doesn't remember a lot of the details of this alleged rape, and she even had her concede at one point that Harvey Weinstein was friendly cajoling her into the bedroom, a point that Annabella Sciorra doesn't recall if she told the DA. The testimony of Annabella Sciorra is vital to the state in order to prove the predatory sexual assault counts, which carry life in prison. Incredible day. Now the question is, what is the jury thinking? This is Jesse Weber reporting for Law&Crime.
Let's bring our guests into the discussion here in studio with me, Brian Buckmeyer and Bernarda Villalona. So, Bernarda, if we take the core accusations here, they are absolutely shocking at face value.
Definitely shocking to think, because we had heard about allegations, but I don't think it's until we heard the testimony of Annabella, how she described that this was actually violence, a violent encounter with Harvey Weinstein in her own home, the sanctity of her own home. I think it definitely shocks the conscience.
Some of the cross-examination, Brian, was very harsh. We actually had the defense, I understand, play an interview clip from a late-night talk show telling the woman sitting on the stand, Annabella Sciorra, that, hey, look, you admitted that you lie about things sometimes. And that somehow came in as relevant.
Absolutely, because in a case like this, it's all about credibility. And they're going to attack every witness's credibility. And you have to some extent, to get to the truth, because the testimony is both the questions and the answers, both the direct and the cross-examination. But I still think Annabella did very well in the testimony today.
And we're going to hear tomorrow from the doctor who's going to testify, Bernarda, that basically some of these accusers will keep in touch with the person that they say was their attacker to try to deflate that defense tactic in saying, well, why would they stay in contact?
Mm-hmm. So I think definitely this expert is going to help explain to the jurors why this behavior that one would think is unusual to try to stay in contact with someone who violently raped you or abused you, but yet you're still in contact with these people.
Exactly. Let's turn to our other two guests here tonight. Dina Dahl is in California. Gigi Gonzalez is in Florida. So, Gigi, there was a backlash on Twitter today from activists and actresses involved in the Me Too movement, basically saying, look, this is cross-examination, but this is treating us unfairly. What's your response to some of that?
I don't think the protesters have a leg to stand on here. They had their time to talk to cameras about their position in the court of public opinion. And now we're in a court of law, and these witnesses are going to be subject to cross-examination. It's the defendant's right to confront their accusers. And I think that the defense did a really good job at trying to undermine the credibility of the witness today.
Many opinions out there saying, hey, look, this is a fairly tried case because the advocacy has been strong here. And from what I'm hearing from Jesse Weber in the courtroom, it has been on both sides, and that's a trial. I've got to ask you this, Dina. One of the actresses who was there, Ellen Barkin, tried to get into the courtroom ahead of the press. She snapped back at a reporter. So tensions are extremely high down in that building.
Yeah, I imagine they are. The just need to get a seat for the press, having to get there so early in order to guarantee a seat. There weren't protesters outside today, so I guess the circus-like atmosphere has died down maybe a little bit. But this is intense, and especially in Manhattan where you are. Everyone's very clued into this.
And look, my take on it is, hey, if New York would allow cameras in court, there wouldn't be a circus-like atmosphere because everybody would be sitting at home watching it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Here in California, once it comes to LA, we're going to have cameras in the courtroom. And the thing is with cameras in the courtroom, especially in a case like this, everyone is going to judge whether or not Harvey Weinstein had a fair trial. And there is a public service for us all being able to see how fair was this trial? What were the victims really like? How was the defense? I think there is a loss here that there's not cameras.
I think I agree with you, but then again, I sit here and cover trials for television. Dina Dahl, Gigi Gonzalez will talk to you at the end of the broadcast here. An arrest warrant is out for troubled NFL player Antonio Brown. Florida authorities say Brown and his trainer got into a fight with a moving crew. The crew demanded payment before unloading Brown's belongings, but he refused to pay, they say, so they left. In the process, Brown is accused of throwing a rock at the truck. The crew demanded a moving fee after coming back, and then a fee for damage to the truck. That's when Brown and his trainer are accused of taking property off the truck, which wasn't even theirs, and then attacking the driver. O.J. Simpson is getting some pushback in a defamation lawsuit he filed against a Las Vegas casino. Simpson says casino staff leaked information to the press that Simpson appeared there wasted, disruptive, and angry. The casino says Simpson's reputation is so tarnished that he cannot even sue for libel. The defense tactic appears to employ the legal doctrine of the so-called libel-proof plaintiff. That's someone who is so bad they cannot be defamed. Simpson is out on parole for an armed robbery and assault case dating back to 2008. A wealthy Connecticut man is now on full house arrest after pleading not guilty and demanding a jury trial on charges he killed his wife during a bitter divorce and custody battle. Appearing in court today, Fotis Dulos also waived his right to a probable cause hearing. His attorney seemed poised to demand one, but now he says he doesn't want to waste time questioning witnesses and potentially divulging his strategy leading up to trial. Also today, prosecutors demanded changes to Dulos' bond because they say he took down parts of a memorial to his wife in his neighborhood.
On the way home, he made an unauthorized stop at the end of his street and moved items from a memorial that was set up there. I would like the court to address the condition of his release. So obviously, Mr. Dulos is on the edge of what he has the right to do or in following the court's orders. He has been given permission, Your Honor, to basically his house arrest, but he has permission to leave his house for to visit his attorney, medical appointments, and religious services with permission. And Judge Blavey also added work as an additional with permission that he could leave out. I would like you to remove that work condition, Your Honor, or if you're going to leave it, to make it perfectly clear to Mr. Dulos what he can and can't do in pure black and white language that he could understand, so when he leaves here, he'll know that, hey, I shouldn't have made this stop. It shouldn't be that hard, but apparently it is.
The defense gave the judge photos from a Facebook group in support of victim Jennifer Dulos. Defense attorney Norm Pattis read messages from the group which said the group aimed to, quote, haunt Fotis Dulos. Pattis called them out and advanced his legal argument.
This is no ordinary memorial. If I lived there, I would rally and have community all be invited to put a memorial right on Fotis' house. Everyone should yell, "Justice for Jennifer." I would love to see hundreds of people place flowers in front of his home. He can't remove them because he can't go far away from the house. This isn't a memorial to Jennifer. It's a means of taunting Mr. Dulos. Mr. Dulos is presumed innocent. He asserts his innocence in this court and is eager to go to trial, which is why we waived the hearing in probable cause. In recent weeks, a man has has inveigled his way into his home under false pretenses, recorded him, and is now trying to distribute those tapes. Mr. Dulos had permission to leave the home the day he did. He had permission for each stop that he made. That included work-related stops. That included a stop at Stop and Shop. He made those stops. When he got to the foot of the common area, he removed items that were there, put there for the purpose of taunting him. Should he have done so? No. I'm asking that the conditions remain what they are, and that he be told it's a zero-tolerance regime. Work-related things are necessary. He's a real estate developer, and the sale of one home will right a faltering financial ship for him. And I think a stern admonishment from the court would be sufficient to right this ship.
The judge disagreed with the defense and ordered Dulos to full house arrest with these harsh words.
Mr. Fotis, your client is apparently a man of means. He's made a $6 million bond. He has a very capable lawyer. Apparently has a business. If he doesn't like memorial that's been set up near his house, he can speak with others to help him deal with that.
He'll do so.
He had strict requirements to follow. He messed up once. He messed up a second time. Third time, I'm going to raise the bond.
Understood, sir.
In fact, it might get doubled. We're not going to come back here again on this issue. What he did was stupid. Don't do it again. I'm going to modify the conditions of release so that the work conditions removed. We're going to have strict house arrest.
And then something I rarely ever see, an immediate request for the judge to reconsider. That led to a back and forth between both sides and the judge.
I'd ask you to reconsider, Judge. I'd ask you to reconsider that. He's presumed innocence. The purpose of bond is to assure the safety of the community and that he will appear. He has not violated the direct order of probation. He stepped outside the bounds on this instance, and he had difficulties with his electronic monitoring device on one occasion. I'm unaware of any other person who's met a bond of $7 million. The public is protected. There have been news reports where people appear saying they don't feel safe in the community because he's been released. That's because he's been adjudged guilty without a trial. That's not what bond is for.
I don't know what anybody else thinks. I know he's presumed innocent. I didn't say he wasn't.
No, but by saying he can't attend to his business affairs, that becomes a penalty that compounds his difficulties. I'm begging you to
he can't attend his business affairs.
Himself. You said there was a report in the local paper that one local bank says that he can't make the utility payments on a property and has moved for a receiver of rents. He is on edge financially, and I'm asking you to give him the permission to right that ship while this case is pending trial. Please.
Just so the record's clear, I indicated that in chambers, not the judge, and I believe Your Honor is not indicating that he can't work, just that he can't leave his house. He could have meetings in his house.
Can he leave the house?
May he not being able to work. He can't leave the house.
May he leave with permission of probation?
No.
I'd ask you to reconsider.
No. If I reconsider, I might reconsider to raise his bar. No, I'm not going to do that.
I've rarely ever seen an exchange like that. And still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, we're going to head back to the trial of the Florida man accused of killing his mother and his brothers. Authorities finally bring up those accusations of Wicca practice as part of the prosecution of Donald Hartung. The connection to the killings is after the break. Welcome back, everybody. Let's pause to check in with Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross. He's in our newsroom now with what he's working on tonight. Brian, good evening.
Thanks, Aaron. We're going to get the latest on the spread of that highly contagious and deadly flu-like virus out of China. 17 dead already, hundreds infected, including one American. Is the U.S. doing enough to stop it? We'll check in with a leading expert. And then we'll turn to Jay-Z. He's now going to bat for prisoners in Mississippi. There are horrendous conditions there. We're going to meet the reporter who first broke the story. That's coming up tonight, Aaron, on after the Daily Debrief.
And for your broadcast. And now to testimony in the Florida case of a man accused of killing his mother and his brothers. Prosecutors in Pensacola are seeking the death penalty against Donald Hartung. Initial reports suggested the killings were somehow related to the Wicca religion, a blue moon, or perhaps even Native American rituals. Investigators described a bloody crime scene here at the home where the victims were stabbed, beaten, and shot. Investigators later searched Donald Hartung's house and inside found some unusual things, which again brought this case back to a possible religious motive.
It's a table in the corner of the room that had some various items on it. This is the other side of the table with candles and other figurines, books.
And do you know what these things are hanging on the wall?
Appeared to be some sort of necklace,
Okay.
and the one on here appeared to be consistent with a braid, a hair braid. There was two area rugs in the center of the room. Facing east and west, and then there you have a dresser with, again, on top you have candles and a couple figurines. This is in the one corner. You can see there's a Ouija board, a few books, candles, and a few figurines as well. This is in one of the drawers. You can see there's witchcraft books and Wicca books. And there's a spool of rope.
Investigators also found a hammer and areas which tested positive for presumptive blood inside the defendant's home. On cross, the defense tried to downplay the significance of those items.
On the hammer, did you do any testing on that to see if there was blood?
I did not at that time.
Did you determine whether on my client's shoes or on the toilet seat, in the area by the front door, on the area rugs, or otherwise on the floor, if any of the blood you found was human blood?
I'm not sure if it was or not.
Hartung agreed to be interviewed by detectives shortly after the killings. It was there investigators told him his family was not only dead, but that they were indeed murdered.
Wrong. I don't think so. It just looks like somebody just came in and shot him. Yeah, looks like somebody knew him, whoever did. Anybody, I don't know anybody that they know. Could have been anybody. Were they having problems with anybody? Was John having problems with anybody or our team? Not recently. Not that I know of. Are you having problems with them at all? No. I haven't had any problems with them. We're not having any problems. So something didn't happen when you were over there Tuesday night and you killed them? No. Nothing happened. You sure? Yes. So if something happened, now's the time to tell me. I would not tell my mother and my brother. I mean, why would I do something like that? I don't know. Well, I understand that. I know that's true. But I wouldn't do something like that. I'd never harm my family.
Let's bring our guests back in to wrap things up tonight. Gigi Gonzalez and Dina Dahl are with me remotely. So Dina, I got to ask about these religious books, Wicca, etc. Police brought it up prior to trial. The prosecutor said nothing about it in opening statements. Then we saw all these evidence pictures come in. What is the relevance to whether or not there was a murder committed here? We don't use religion to try to demonize people as character evidence. So how is it coming in?
I think you are exactly right. And I was thinking that too. Your religion shouldn't matter technically at all. And here, I think it's just because I think the prosecution really is trying to explain why would somebody want to kill their family. They point to some motive, but again, of financial, the viciousness of it. I think they're just trying to show how strange he was, to be quite honest. And this witchcraft is a strange religion, even if religion is protected.
Yeah, exactly. I got to ask you about this as well, Gigi. I mean, you know, what if it was a religion that one of us, perhaps, or someone watching holds dear? Would they perceive it as an affront to them if the prosecutor tried to throw this in and say, hey, well, that makes you a murderer?
Absolutely. And the one thing the state wants to avoid here is turning this into some sort of First Amendment debate amongst the jurors. there's plenty to go on here. Money was definitely a motivating factor in this situation. The last thing you want in Pensacola, Florida, which tends to be pretty conservative, is this to become some sort of conversation regarding whether or not this person has a right to practice his religion in whatever way he pleases.
Forget about Salem. We apparently have the Pensacola witchcraft trials now going on in the year 2020 in Florida. I don't know. We'll continue to debate this around the table here with our guests in studio. Bernarda, when I raised that point, you turned around and you nodded your head the way a good defense attorney would. Here's my thing. If it's relevant, make the relevance point, and if it's relevant, bring it up in the opening statements, and I didn't hear that from the prosecution.
Yeah, but I think the reality is that you don't have to prove motive when it comes to your burden of proving murder beyond a reasonable doubt. So to me, it doesn't matter. If anything, I think it just confuses the jury. Stick with what's simple, which is money. Now, you're going into witchcraft. Now you're going to have to put in some testimony, some explanation about what is it that we're seeing. But keep it simple. Go for the money. Get your conviction.
Yeah, Brian, what do you make of this? I mean, if you were handling this as a public defender, how would you go up against these accusations from the prosecution that we're bringing all of this in?
So interesting enough, I've actually handled a case like this where a client of mine was Jamaican and they tried to use both his Jamaican patois as well as Rastafarianism as a part of the case. The problem is I'm half Jamaican and patois is my native language. So if you're going to come with that theory, you got to come correct and know the religion, know the language, and do it right. Otherwise, it's sloppy and you're going to lose, just like my prosecutor did in that case.
Okay, so Brian, again, I'm going to ask the same question of you here. If this is that relevant, why wasn't it front and center in the opening statements? Is this one of these things where prosecutors want to kind of slide it in there and just say, well, you know, we're going to make the guy perhaps look bad in the eyes of some jurors and then hope that that helps him look worse than he would look if we just flat out accuse him of killing his family for money?
From what I'm seeing, it was sloppily done where they're fearful of the backlash of that community coming back and saying, hey, we don't like this. And also they're not having the experts to fully understand the Wiccan community and how it's applied. So if you can't walk that tightrope, don't walk it at all, and just go straight for the motivation of finances.
Yeah, I mean, let's get the financial data in here, Bernarda, and we just have a couple of seconds left.
I mean, like I said, the thing is that with the prosecution not bringing it in an opening, the reality is that you haven't explained that to the jury. So to them to be listening to for the first time by question and answer, they're confused.
All right, thanks a lot for the analysis tonight. We need to wrap things up here on The Debrief. We'll be back here tomorrow at 5 o'clock with our recap of the day in court.